CEO of Operation Hope, and really someone who is a great fan of this man. We're going to get to just a moment. And we are here at historic Ebenezer Church. This is the original Ebenezer Church where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached every Sunday, along with his father, Daddy King. Behind that pulpit, that's deep. And we have a live audience here with us. Give some love, you guys. Let them know you're here. So, and I'm really excited. It's mostly young people. We've got to make this new movement relevant to young people. Ambassador Andrew Young, who'll be here later today, said you cannot have a movement, Reverend Vivian, without young people. So we're here with... True. Yeah. Well, and he's younger than me. Supposedly he's 91. So I think it's a lie. He runs 2 miles a day.
But I used to.
So what is it, 1 mile a day?
No, as soon as it gets warm, I have to start over again. But when the winter comes, I peel back. I don't go 2 miles, right?
Did you hear that? He's 91. He said when the winter comes, he sort of peels back. He doesn't go quite as long as 2 miles a day. You got people out here 30 years old, can't walk a quarter mile, complaining about PE in school, and this guy runs 2 miles a day, or walks 2 miles a day, or thinks about 2 miles a day. Most people don't think about 2 miles a year. So look, let me do this right, because I think that he is my friend and he is a mentor to me and an inspiration. But I'm going to do this right. Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian, Presidential Medal of Freedom Award recipient under President Barack Obama, who just happens to be the realization of many aspects of Dr. Martin Luther King's dream. In many ways, what they were fighting to set up, President Obama, at least in the government sense, the public policy sense, paid it off. And he's gotten through his administration with not one scandal. That's unbelievable. We can't think of a modern presidency since World War II that did not have some scandal. He's done it with class and dignity. And really, this man, who he chose to honor as the Presidential Medal of Freedom awardee, represents the best of not only America, but the world. I know that South Africa will be watching, that Nigeria and Rwanda will be watching, that Africa will be looking at this, the Middle East will be looking at this, throughout the United States we'll be looking at this. And I want you to know more about this man. I'm going to talk a little bit about his legacy with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His work is not symbolic. His work is embedded in the place that we are today. Operation Hope has a Hope Inside location at the new Ebenezer Church, which because we outgrew this church very quickly. It's actually not a very big place when you think about it. And to think about so much power and history that happened here is unbelievable to this day. It's very humbling. So the new Ebenezer Church is really appropriate that civil rights is here, and the home of civil rights is in the new Ebenezer Church at the Daddy King Center. Yeah.
If you look at that stained glass window over there, that's
right here.
Yeah, that's Martin's grandfather.
His grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, okay.
And if you see the one over here, that's his father.
So that's Daddy King.
Yeah. And can you imagine that you've got 3 generations here? Now, I want you to really think about this as young people, is that it took and it will take almost every time about 3 generations to bring forth the truly great one. But they're an outgrowth of what these 2 generations actually did. If they had not designed and hoped and worked and gone to school and studied really, not just go to school, but they were outstanding there, right? Is that they produced Martin Luther King Jr. You have to understand that, right? And he represents all of us across the world. And his desire was that mankind would be represented, because that's what he was after, to make certain that we all understood that we are so much alike. You could not make America believe that just a few years ago. But now we have not only Martin King, but we have the President Obama with a family that is also, just to see them, know that they're more outstanding than we have seen in a century.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. We need to get back to that. A strong family, a strong black family, but a strong family, period. A strong black family.
Yeah, that's right. But that's important. It's always important to say black in a place that looked down upon us.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And now it has to look up. Right? But it prefers to look up. And this is an important thing you have to see.
Say that again. It prefers
it prefers to look up. Right?
Versus
to an Obama. It didn't have to elect Obama.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't have to. Martin King is the only African American, the only preacher that's on the American Mall.
And on the currency. They're about to put them on the currency, in the $5 bill.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And see, it just keeps happening because the greatness of the man, the people, the understanding. It's the destruction of anything that's negative about us. Because you always have to ask why. If they have anything to say about us, right? Ask why. Because anything was created, but we have produced in spite of everything that has been done to keep us from achieving. We've done it in spite of.
In spite of, yeah.
We didn't do it because of. Nobody was helping us. It went the other way around.
Well, I often say, Reverend Vivian, that nothing happens because of. If it was because of, we wouldn't love anybody, wouldn't even love ourselves. It was because of, so we got to love in spite of. We got to live in spite of. We got to move forward in spite of. And your whole life really is a life in spite of the discrimination, in spite of the repression, in spite of the disrespect. I mean, I remember men disrespecting you, and you just smiling at them, not in a laughable way, just in a very, you're trying to sort of de-escalate the tension. And what I saw when I saw the dignity in you as you responded to them in the civil rights movement, it was, you were embodied what Reverend Murray told me. It's not what people call you. It's what you answer to that's important. That's right. And never answer out of your name. Your parents said that too. So that, these good lessons pass from generation to generation. I want to also acknowledge Don Rivers, who has been with you for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
He's here today. He's a silent soldier, doesn't get a lot of credit, but I want to acknowledge and thank you, Don, for all that you do, who's also really fulfilling your legacy, extending your legacy in the community. So you pass it on to Don, Don's passed it on to others, Dr. King passed it on to you in many ways, or infected you with this sort of approach. Tell me what this place means to you, and tell us in real time what happened with you, and then I want to go back to your childhood. Tell us what this means to you and your relationship to Dr. Martin King Jr.
When we think of this church, when we think of many modern churches, we have to think that African Americans didn't have a new church until just a few years ago. It was in New York City about 40 years ago, right? We had a new church. We only had lights in small places, right? Yeah, but you see, what happens is the spirit that we had was the best Christianity that America had. We created the real original American Christian song, right? Is that when we overcome, that's exactly right. See, and that's the kind of peace that we made movement with. But even before that, we protected our souls, our very souls, right, with our music. And when we took it to Europe, people sat and cried.
When I was in Norway 2 weeks ago, there's a photo of you in the Nobel Peace Prize Center, along with Dr. King and Ambassador Andrew Young. So you're right, it's all over Europe. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Is that we have to begin to see that in a short length of time, we've overcome slavery. Right? Slavery. Nobody's done that.
Repeat that. Repeat that. We've overcome.
We've overcome slavery. Slavery is not easily overcome.
And nobody else has done that in a short period of time.
Precisely right.
Yeah. We did it in less than 300 years.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, maybe this is...
And when you get to be 90, you realize how short 100 years really is.
Isn't it unbelievable this guy's 90-something years? Can you give him some love? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I think that, excuse me, Lord, excuse me, legacy of Dr. King, I don't mean to I think the guy's lying. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's my friend, we hang out, we've tripped. We were in Washington together. At the White House and at the Treasury Department, meeting with Secretary Jack Lew. This guy is walking down the hall faster than we were. He's walking around doing the tours. We all needed a break. It is unbelievable that a life of passion and a life of purpose doesn't get tired. Is that right?
That's right, Doc. And it's true. In fact, when they say, do you want to retire? From what? There's no doubt about it, is that life is made to live. Get on the right track. And you don't have to worry about death and all that sort of thing. You don't have to worry about it, right? It'll be unnatural. And you don't know how long you can live. I have a great-great-grandmother that lived to be 108.
Wow. Dr. King said when you guys were in the movement, he said, if you don't know what you're willing to die for, you aren't fit to live.
That's exactly right.
And then I've often said in this new movement that you've been supportive of, Reverend Vivian, that there's a difference between being broke and being poor.
Yeah.
That being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. Do you agree with that, number one? Number two, okay. Number two, what does a place like this do to African American spirit in circa 1960 when the world is rejecting them, coming into Ebenezer Church, listening to Dr. King and Daddy King from this pulpit renew us every week? How important was that?
In fact, the importance of the church is never in America to take a short shift, is that the church has meant everything to African Americans, right? At every level of our existence in this country. It was God that kept us going. We knew that we were right and we knew they were wrong. But the only way we could know they were wrong by using God as the decider of right and wrong. Right? And America has never been right on the matter of religion because it's refused to obey God when it came to race. Right? Yeah. Why would we have to have a black church and a white church in any town, any city? Why would you have to have that? Who was right? See, whose God is the central issue. Every time I use that in a church or something, people jump forward because is that whose God is your God makes all the difference in the world. All right?
Yeah.
Is that is why do they have a white God? And we've accepted it because it's the only one around, right? But inside we didn't accept it.
Yeah, well, and I let's see if you accept or reject this. I think I'm going to try to bring this to round to the audience. No, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys enjoying this? What I said is that we're not human beings having a. Actually, I didn't say this. I'm repeating a European prophet. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So God's not white, black, you know. I mean, it's arrogant for us to ascribe a physicality to God in any regard. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And this is why we never did. And we could have had every right to do it because we knew that God wasn't white. But to say it to them makes them mad, right?
Yeah.
We don't live to make people mad.
Okay, that's right.
That's right. But we do live to lead people into righteousness.
To lean people into righteousness.
That's
You guys hear that?
exactly
To
right.
lean people into. I mean, so watch how you live your life. It may be the only Bible that anybody else reads. Why do I love myself? My mother told me to.
That's exactly.
Why am I a businessman? My daddy was a businessman. We model what we see. Why do I want to be a good man? I see a good man. I mean, you know, when you see a brother like this, how can you, when you see somebody like this going right, how can you go left? Don, what's the name of the organization that Reverend Vivian created in Chicago? Upward Bound. Guys heard of that? You guys heard of that? Upward Bound? He created it. So let's talk a little bit about Upward Bound, and let's talk about how Daddy King served on the board of a bank for 40 years. By the way, you guys watching, this is the new era broadcast network. You get to contribute. You get to ask questions of this living legend directly. So add your questions below, and we will respond to you in real time. My man here, Trevor, and Kevin Boucher and others will document your questions and will push them to us and Reverend Vivian. Before we wrap up, we'll try to get to some of your questions. If we don't do it before we wrap up, this will be broadcast all week, and we will answer your questions, Reverend Vivian and I, throughout the course of the week and get back to you. So make sure you put your voice in today. So Daddy King served on the board of a bank for 40 years.
Yeah.
You chaired a bank. Some people might see a disconnect between civil rights and what I call civil rights and this thing called Upward Bound, which is about jobs, right, for those left behind. Tie it all together for us.
It's more than jobs. You can't have a job or understand economics unless you have a bank helping you out do it, right? And this is why I love your program, is because what you're doing and your book, all right, makes it possible that and your plan, right? A whole plan to take us from the low point economically to a high point economically. And it's not impossible to do, and you proved that in your book, right? And and you're carrying it out. And this is what's important, is how do we understand that we can now run more rapidly. We were moving slowly. Now we can go rapidly toward where Martin wanted to take us. Martin was doing the first part, is making certain that we had laws in our favor. Now what you're doing, right, is taking us to another level of finance. And in this culture in which we live, you can't properly live in it without understanding American financial system. And to understand it is to use it, and to use it is to understand it. It's not an accident that we have few millionaires. If you never were that you could know, there's no way you can follow through. It's not an accident that the North has produced more more millionaires in the South, white or black, right? It's because it was out of reach. And practically all the wealth in the South was in land.
Yeah, in land, and tied to this old backwards philosophy of slave labor and indentured servants. The richest state in America in 1830 was Mississippi. The poorest state in America today is Mississippi.
And it was built on our back.
Literally.
And as soon as the Civil War was over, then it went the other way.
So Dr. King and you were pivoting, and Andrew Young and Ralph Abernathy and all these heroes and sheroes, Dr. Dorothy Height, Coretta Scott King. You guys were pivoting the economics?
Yeah. Oh, in fact, there's no doubt. In fact, as soon as we came to the point that we no longer, the laws were in our favor, my wife said to me, all right, now let us help build this bank.
Wow. Your wife said that to you?
Yeah. My man came around saying that he was starting a bank.
Yeah.
Right? And here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Atlanta now is one of the 10 most important cities in the country. Right?
Oh, yeah, it's the 8th largest economy in the whole country, Atlanta.
There we go. So,
which Dr. King and you and others built.
That's right.
Andrew Young, yeah.
And so when he wanted to build a bank, we were the first to lay down our money.
Wow, you and your wife.
Yeah.
So women don't get the credit that they deserve.
That's precisely right.
Coretta Scott, Dr. King legacy would be in tatters without Coretta Scott King. She didn't get married again, and spent 30 years of her life, 20 years of her life, really teeing this legacy up, getting the holiday done, really teeing up the environment for this monument on the mall. Your wife, I didn't know this, had this influence on you. Ambassador Young's wife, Jean Charles Young, had a great influence on him. In fact, Jean's wife and Dr. King's wife came from the same small town.
That's exactly right.
Let me tell this quick.
Go on now, because you see, if we can really see that women have always been a driving power in the black community.
Yeah.
And it's because,
and get no credit for it.
Because men were not allowed to be fully men if you were black in America. All right? They were not allowed to be. In fact, they were killed, hung, et cetera, et cetera. Anything you tried to do to push forward.
As a black man.
That's exactly right.
And I wonder if that damages our self-esteem as black men today.
In fact, we can't outlive that in such a short length of time.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
But the point being is that we've escaped from the south to the north. One of the great things.
Before you pivot, can I tell the story about Jean Charles Young?
Oh, sure. Oh,
I know you won't lose your place.
No.
By the way, do we have questions that we want to ask? Do we have questions that we want to ask online or from the audience? You do? So Jean Charles Young was with Ambassador Andrew Young in her hometown when Ambassador Young became a UN ambassador. So Reverend Vivian, they were in the car and Jean looked over and there was a hobo, a bum on the side of the road. You know this story? And she said, well, I went to school with that guy. Unfortunately, he's a bum now. And Ambassador Andrew Young, newly minted UN ambassador, said, well, you could have married that guy. And Jean Charles Young responds without missing a beat. She said, yeah, and if I had married that guy, he'd be UN ambassador for the United States of America. Isn't that classic, right?
Yeah, and you've got to understand that. In fact, the women, period, in black life, the grandmothers of us all, the grandmother, in fact, is the closest thing to God in the black family.
Wow. Repeat that. Say that.
And I will. I like saying it, right? Because my grandmother was that to me, right?
Good. No, please say that again for the audience.
Is that your grandmothers in the black family, all right, are the closest thing to God.
That's a drop the mic quote of the hour. The grandmother in the black community is the closest thing to God we've ever seen in our lifetime. I think that's certainly true. So we have a question online. What did you think of Dr. King when you first met?
Is that when I first met with Doc, is that the thing that stood out for me was that he used nonviolent direct action. That was tremendously important because my wife and I had both not only studied but used nonviolence before we ever came south.
Wow.
And we knew that it worked.
Yeah.
This is why we were on the front line as soon as Martin started in Montgomery. Right?
Okay. What year did you join him?
It was 12 years before we started here. All right.
Okay.
And not only that, in Peoria, Illinois, right,
yeah.
which is north, right. We opened Caterpillar Tractor Company and made that man who was in charge, all right, open the doors of Caterpillar for our jobs. Here was the biggest business in all downstate Illinois, right? And we couldn't have a job in it except for mopping floors.
So people don't realize that the March on Washington was about the March on Jobs and Freedom. Jobs and freedom. Jobs and freedom. Here you go, Caterpillar.
Right.
Jobs once again.
Precisely.
What you're doing, what you did in Chicago, jobs and opportunity.
That's it.
The bank,
Right.
Jobs and capital access.
Talk about it, and you can, because you really have written a real fine book on it. It's
about how
not,
the poor can save capitalism is what he's referring to. Yeah.
And in fact,
Thank you.
Say the real title.
The book he's referring to is How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, Rebuilding the Path to the Middle Class, a Solution for the 100%. We're going to make sure everybody in the audience gets a free copy, by the way.
But get the real thought there, how the poor can save capitalism. In fact, the poor lives off of Wall Street. But Wall Street has to have the poor to exist.
That's right.
Now, what we and what he has outlined and laid out a plan for is how we take that knowledge and go from being at the lower end to going all the way up the ladder if you learn what to do. Poverty is something that doesn't have to exist. And we can have a different world. I just have to say that because the book is so important to all of us.
Thank you.
And
I love you too.
Yeah.
I love you. You know, a black man should be able to tell another black man, "I love you."
That's right.
That's right. In private, on TV, in public. I'm telling you right now, I love this man. I'm a straight black man. I'm saying I love this man.
You keep hearing me pat him on the back and thank him and everything else because that's the way we must live. Huh?
That's right. Positive aspiration.
There is no reason that we can any longer have to put each other down. We used to put each other down.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movement, we used to say, if you're white, you're right. If you're black, get back. All right? We have gone from that. That's what we were doing, overcoming any negativism. And when we finally got a black president, there wasn't a position in this nation that we didn't hold.
So when you went to the Treasury Department, we saw a lot of people of color in the place where money is distributed and created. What was that experience for you going to Treasury? Because you said that in the Civil Rights Movement, you guys never met at Treasury Department.
No, not only that, we'd never been in it, but the worst part of it, we never even thought to be in it.
Wow.
And this is why when you asked me to go with you, all right, he'd already laid the groundwork for us looking back and seeing how at one time how significant we were. Is that the and how that had been taken away.
The Friedmans Bank.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Friedmans Bank had been taken away. There was a bank for that was formed by American black people, right? It was a national bank in which people all over the nation put their money into.
1865, Abraham Lincoln. And Frederick Douglass.
1865, right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, in fact, he should tell its story.
No,
so
no,
please
no.
do. Please do.
There's a video on it. You can go on my page and watch it. Actually, 300,000 people have watched this video about the Friedmans Bank. That's the story of you and I being there with Andrew Young and others, January 7th. So it is getting a lot of eyeballs. I want to make sure we don't waste any time here because before this wraps up, do we have? Can I go to the audience for a question? Anybody want a young lady? Yep. Do you think that? Repeat that again now. That this time we're in right now, will history repeat itself? So you mean the time when he was with in the civil rights movement? Do you think the time when you were in the civil rights movement, that magical time, do you think that will repeat itself? What's your name, by the way? Kennedy? Kennedy, young Kennedy, how old are you? 9. Young Kennedy asked the question, do you think that this will repeat itself?
In fact, we will move forward faster than we did before, right? See, because the further up you go, the faster you go. You go on up.
I'm going to take a picture of Kennedy. I want to get it on. I want to put a picture photo on the site.
Is our going back will not repeat itself. We have come too far. For instance, there's in 400 years and we have a first president. You know what that means? That means for the first time that any black person has really known everything about America, inside and out.
Yes.
See, I mean,
and she doesn't know another president other than a black president.
Yeah.
I mean, how old are you? She's 9. She has no clue. That's unbelievable. She has no clue of anything other than a black president. Imagine how empowering that is.
That's exactly right. In fact, sister, and for you to ask the question has so much meaning. It tells us also how we must continue to struggle and never take anything for granted. I have come across an idea that every struggle makes a greater struggle necessary. Okay? Is that, and your struggle will come too. It's necessary for you to have to struggle to a height that we have not yet reached. All right? Is that, and what can the reason to me that you asked the question is it seemed like that we could go backwards. No, we will never go backwards. We will continue to go forward. All right? Okay.
Kennedy stood up. She stood up. You can't see her on the camera. She stood up. No, she asked a question. She sat down. She listened intently to what Reverend Vivian had to say. When he finished, she stood up, put her shoulders back, said, "Thank you." Come on now. That's what we're talking about. This is you set it up. She paid it off. Let's give Kennedy some love. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is literally the first interview for the Hope Global Forums channel. It is the only channel in the world focused on financial inclusion, financial literacy, women and girls empowerment, minority entrepreneurship, minority small business, the wealth gap, the income inequality, the crisis of jobs, the crisis in our communities, how you go from civil rights to civil rights.
That's right.
It is the only channel in the world focusing on the empowerment of you. We have focused for too long on what's wrong. We have perfected the problem. It takes 20 years to change a culture, so says Quincy Jones. In the last 20 years, we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. We've got to make smart sexy again. That's the next 20 years. We become experts in what we are against. Now we must become an expert in what we are for. We have perfected civil rights. Now we've got to perfect civil rights. We're out. That's civil rights. This is Reverend C.T. Vivian. Give him some love. I love you, man.
I love you, my brother.
Is there, what didn't we talk about that we want to do? Because we can do another one. What